For centuries, gold has been the ultimate store of value, a safe haven asset in times of economic turmoil. And today, there is a new contender for that throne, one that challenges everything that we know and understand about money. And I'm of course talking about Bitcoin. And while gold has been the go-to investment for many generations, Bitcoin is making waves. And I think it's getting ready to surpass gold in ways that nobody is really expecting. So in this video, I'm going to break down why I personally believe that Bitcoin is getting ready to outperform gold. So stay tuned, this is a video that you don't want to miss. And before we dive into all of this, make sure to hit the like button. It will really help me with the YouTube algorithm to reach more people like you, for whom this video could also be valuable. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to also subscribe to the channel, because throughout this crypto market cycle, I'm going to be posting videos regularly to help you to get an edge in the market and to help you to make sense of everything that is going on in the complex world of crypto and investing. Now, that being said, it's also important to make one quick disclaimer over here. Nothing in this video is financial advice. It has been made purely for educational purposes. I just want to share my own philosophy based on my research, but you should always do your own research and form your own conclusions before making any investment. Now, with that out of the way, we can dive in. All right. Why Bitcoin will beat gold? The picture that you see over here is a supermarket in South Korea. It's a convenience store. And this CNBC headline is saying gold bars are selling like hotcakes in Korea's convenience stores and vending machines. So imagine this, you're going to your normal convenience store, and now instead of selling meat, dairy, salad, they're now selling gold bars in a vending machine. And by surprise, you know, all of these gold bars are suddenly sold out very rapidly, and there's a lot of demand for these gold bars. Now, what could be the reason for this popularity for these gold bars in South Korea? Well, the demand for gold bars and gold coins in South Korea went up with almost 27% over the past year. And last quarter, the country saw its sharpest increase in gold purchases in more than 2 years. Here on my screen are the inflation numbers of South Korea. So economists all around the world kind of agree that a 2% inflation rate is healthy. So what do we mean with inflation in the first place? Well, governments are printing more money, and with every unit of money that's extra in circulation, all of the other money in circulation gets a little bit worth less. So your purchasing power of every unit of money goes down. Because there's just more supply in the market. And why is a 2% inflation rate healthy? Well, if you know that in 1 year from now your money is going to be slightly worth less, then you have a bigger incentive today to spend or invest your money. So it gives people an incentive to keep money in circulation. And within an economy, you want money to be circulating. You call this the velocity of money. You want money to go through the system. You want spending, investing. As long as money is moving from one pocket to another pocket, that means that salaries can be paid, food can be bought, you name it, the economy can grow. And what we're seeing is that the inflation rate in Korea was actually at 5% last year. And earlier we saw that it was around 4% in the 2000s. So the fact that gold was suddenly so popular in Korea in the previous 2 years was because we saw a spike in the inflation in Korea. And people are looking for ways to store their wealth, to protect themselves against this inflation. And an increased inflation was a trend all across the world. We've seen that in the US, we've seen it in Europe, like all around the world, we've seen quite high inflation numbers. When governments are reporting that inflation is going down, for example, that inflation is 2% instead of 5% last year, it doesn't mean that inflation goes down. It means that there's an additional 2% of inflation on top of the 5% inflation of last year. So one thing is for sure, it's a fact that fiat money, which is paper money issued by most governments around the world, is decreasing in value. And people are looking for safe havens to store their wealth and to protect themselves against this inflation. And one of those safe havens is gold. And that's why you see that the price of gold has been steadily increasing in the past few years. Now, investing in gold is not something new. Like I mentioned in the introduction of this video, many societies and generations have been investing in gold. It has always been the go-to safe haven asset, especially in times of economic turmoil. A lot of rich people own gold in safes. Countries own gold. Investment funds own gold. And as a result, it has become one of the most valuable, actually the most valuable asset in the world, with a market cap of $17.5 trillion. So what do I mean with market cap? If you take every piece of gold in circulation, at least every known piece of gold, multiply it with the value of gold today, then you get the market cap. So that's a unit times the price times the total circulation. So total amount of units in circulation, then you get the market cap. Same with Bitcoin. You could also calculate the market cap by taking all of the Bitcoins in circulation and then multiplying it times their market value. Then we'd get a market cap of $1.2 trillion. So just below Meta. Now, that's very interesting. So when we look at this list of most valuable assets in the world, we have gold, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, silver, Saudi Aramco, which is Saudi Arabia's national oil and gas company. Then we have Meta, and then we have Bitcoin. So gold has been considered the go-to store of value for many centuries. If you think about it, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Romans, the Spanish, they all loved gold. They were all hoarding gold because they knew it was very scarce and very limited. And as everything that's scarce and limited with an increasing demand, that's something that can hold value over the long term. The first recorded use of gold as a store of value dated all the way back to 3000 BC, before Christ, in the ancient Mesopotamia. So that's somewhere around the Middle East. Gold was also used by the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Incas, the Aztecs. Many different societies use gold in our history. And as inflation increases, we see that people start to buy more gold. Here, that's this chart over here. So this has probably a very strong correlation with the increased amount of inflation over the past few years. And in the US, for example, we see that the national debt is somewhere around 36 trillion. And of course, there's two ways to pay off that debt. Either you print more money to pay off that debt, or you tax your citizens. But there's only a certain amount of tax. There's a maximum limit of how much you can tax your citizens before they just want to leave the country. That's what we're actually seeing in the West. We're seeing that a lot of citizens are now leaving their country because they had enough with all of the taxation, so they want to go to lower tax countries like the United Arab Emirates, for example, where there are more favorable tax laws and regulations. And while all of this is happening, while people are shocked by all of the inflation, all of the endless money printing, they are fleeing to gold. So here are the US inflation rates, just to give you a few examples. And if you're not from the US, if you're from another country, don't worry, I'm also going to show those inflation rates. So here the US inflation rate peaked around 2022 at around 9%. So what does that mean, an inflation rate of 9%? If you're holding $100 in your bank account today, then in 1 year from now, you would be able to buy 9% less products and services with the same amount of money. And now you're seeing that the inflation rate is somewhere around 2.5%. Again, this is very tricky. It doesn't mean that inflation actually went down, but the speed at which inflation is increasing, so the velocity or the speed at which your money is becoming worthless, is decreasing. So instead of it losing 9% per year, now it's losing 2.5% per year, on top of the already 9% that it lost before. So that is quite shocking, and I understand why people are looking for a way to protect themselves against that. The Eurozone isn't much better. In that same period, around the end of 2022, we saw inflation numbers in the double digits, to 10.6%, and now it's also somewhere around 2%. But again, like it's a trend that governments around the world are just printing more and more money, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. Now, let's talk about gold versus Bitcoin. That's, of course, why you were watching this video in the first place. So Bitcoin is quite a young asset. It has just, hasn't even hit its 20th birthday yet. So it's a teenager, it just came out of puberty, and it's now becoming more mature. Meanwhile, gold has been around for many centuries. It has been used as a store of value for many thousands of years. And if we look at the performance, then we see that Bitcoin is up around 1,434% since the pandemic lows, and gold is up around 49% around that same period. So Bitcoin has actually been named the best asset class of the past decade because it generated more than 10x the amount of returns that other assets were generating. And I want to show you the table that this headline is based upon. So there was someone on Twitter called 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗹, which published this article, and in this article he basically broke down all of the different asset classes out there: Bitcoin, the Nasdaq, large caps, small caps, REITs, high yield bond, you name it, all the different types of asset classes and their annual performance. And he found that if you look at their performance over the past 10 years, so in particular from 2011 to 2021, Bitcoin has generated around 230% per year, while the Nasdaq 100, which was the second leading best performing asset of the past 10 years, generated around 20% annualized return. So that means that Bitcoin performed almost 10 times better than that. So within this same time period, if we look at the financial performance, then Bitcoin has shown a much better financial performance than gold. Now, let's look at another trend. So the world is slowly moving towards a more digital world. Millennials, I'm a millennial, and Gen Zs, we are the first generations that are born into a completely online world. My nephew, who is 12 right now, he was basically born with an iPad in his hand. He doesn't know anything else than swiping and using his iPad to watch videos, browse the internet. He is a digital native, and this is not going to this has a big impact on where investment dollars, euros, pounds, yens are going to move in the next decade. A survey by the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗹 Group, who is an independent financial advisory firm, found that more than 2/3 of millennials prefer Bitcoin over gold as a safe haven asset. So here you see the cover of that financial report. Bitcoin is preferred over gold, which was surveyed amongst a group of millennials and Gen Zs, and 77% of those respondents preferred Bitcoin over gold. That's quite significant. Why? Because we're also going to see a large wealth transfer that is soon going to happen, and that is going to flow into Bitcoin. But more about that in a bit. Bitcoin has a lot of properties that are very similar to gold, but are also very different. For example, again, they're really great stores of value because they have shown great returns, while fiat money is only becoming worth less over time. But Bitcoin has the added feature or added characteristic that it's a lot easier to transport and to take with you than gold. Imagine that all hell breaks loose, World War III breaks out, and you have a few kilos of gold and you want to take that to an exchange to swap it into cash to buy guns and groceries or whatever. Then if you're gonna walk over the street with your gold bars, trust me, you're gonna get stabbed, killed, and robbed for those gold bars. With Bitcoin, on the other hand, you can simply put a cold storage wallet in your pocket and nobody will notice that you're carrying a large amount of money with you. Also, when you're traveling, when you're going in a plane, when you're going through the metal detector, those kind of things, it doesn't really have a big impact on Bitcoin, whereas it has a big impact on gold. You cannot easily take a kilo of gold with you on the airplane. Next, transparency. So when we compare gold and Bitcoin with each other, then you see that the gold industry, if you really take a closer look at gold, is not very transparent. At any point in time, we don't really know how much gold is in circulation and how much gold is being mined. So the gold industry likes to keep this a little bit obscure because then they can manipulate the prices. Bitcoin, on the other hand, the blockchain is public and transparent. Everyone can see it. So you know exactly how much gold is in circulation, how much new supply is being mined by miners. You can track this every single day. So gold is a lot easier to transport. It's a lot more transparent. And the gold market is highly manipulated. So we've seen a lot of news articles in the past, a lot of fraud cases where banks, in this case, but also governments and other entities, were involved in manipulating the price of gold. So here you see a headline by Reuters saying JP Morgan needs to pay almost $1 billion for manipulating the precious metals and treasury market. Now, let's talk about the fact that Bitcoin adoption is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I know that many of you are thinking that you want to get rich quickly. You don't want to wait. You just want to throw a few dollars left and right, and you hope to win sort of the jackpot and get rich very quick. Well, if you're looking to get rich quick in the financial markets, you're probably going to get wrecked. You're going to fall for meme coins, rug pulls, basically all of those have a very likelihood that you're going to lose 99.9% of your money. Just a very small percentage of people actually make money with those things. And oftentimes they are the creators, the people that are making the projects, the rug pulls, the honeypots that are actually making money. But if you want to make real money and real wealth, then you need to zoom out and you need to understand the bigger picture. And that is that Bitcoin adoption is a marathon and not a sprint. And what do I mean with this? Well, we are about to see the greatest wealth transfer in history. Why? Because my father's generation, the baby boomers, the post-war generation, right now they are the wealthiest generation in the world. They have around $84 trillion of wealth. A lot of it is in real estate, a lot of it is in stocks, savings, pension funds, you name it. And we are approaching a time where those baby boomers are getting older and older, and slowly they're going to go extinct. They're going to pass out, and who is going to inherit that money? Well, the millennials and the Gen Zs. And what do they prefer? Do they prefer gold or do they prefer Bitcoin? So as you've seen before with the research report, they prefer Bitcoin. So where do you believe that all of this inherited wealth is going to flow towards? It's probably going to flow to Bitcoin. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. Do you believe that the millennials and the Gen Zs are going to invest the money that they have inherited from their parents into Bitcoin or not? Because if that happens, it means that a significant chunk of this $84 trillion of wealth is going to flow into Bitcoin. And just imagine what that is going to do with the value and the price of Bitcoin. So right now, Bitcoin is following a very similar trajectory to the adoption of the internet. We are still very early. We haven't reached mass adoption yet. Your grandma, your aunt, your neighbor aren't yet easily owning and transacting in Bitcoin. So as time progresses, we're going to see more and more market participants. We're going to see that education is improving. People are going to better understand this asset class, and that more money is going to flow into this space. So we're still early and we can ride the wave up, almost like the early days of the internet industry, where you invested early in Meta, in Amazon, in Google. And with all of the inherited wealth that is going to flow into this asset class, we might actually see accelerated adoption happening. We're also seeing stuff like this happen, where the number of Bitcoin ATMs, which is an interesting proxy in Australia, is also growing. So right now there are around 1,162 Bitcoin ATMs. So this is a sign of user adoption. These are ways to make it easier for the average person to buy and transact in Bitcoin. And that's really amazing. What we're also going to see is that financial advisors who have been very much against advising Bitcoin because their bosses didn't allow them to recommend it to their customers. But now we're seeing that banks like Morgan Stanley are allowing their wealth advisors to push and promote Bitcoin-related products like the Bitcoin Spot ETF. Again, this is going to help with the adoption, and it's going to help a lot of money to flow into the Bitcoin market. When we look at the top 13 holders of Bitcoin, we actually see the US government on there. We see the Chinese government. And I believe that over time, we're also going to see governments adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. And again, this is going to bring in a lot of money into this asset. So if you zoom out and remember, investing in Bitcoin is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So if you look at Bitcoin over the long term, and all of the adoption and all of the money that can flow into this asset class, and we are still early. Whereas gold is a very mature asset class with, you could say, arguably worse characteristics than Bitcoin. We talked before about the transparency, but also the possibility to transport Bitcoin a lot easier and also safer compared to gold. So as more people start to understand this, I think Bitcoin will surpass gold as a go-to safe haven asset, and that it will become the most valuable asset class in the world. Of course, this is not a guarantee. This is just my investment thesis based on everything that I'm seeing happening in the markets and in the world. And if you agree with me or don't agree with me, let me know in the comments below. I'm just really curious to hear your thoughts, what you think about all of this. That being said, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Make sure to hit the like button so I know that you got good value out of it. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be posting regularly throughout this crypto market cycle to help you to get an edge and to help you to make sense of everything that's going on in the markets. All right, that's it for this video. Peace out and see you in the next one.